Hi, a few of you guys on our Discord channel have asked how to set up Gamesparks in Unreal Engine so that you have a dedicated server. So the first thing you want to do here is just head over to the gamesparks.com website, gamesparks.com, and just sign up for an account. Okay? Now when you sign up for an account, you're then asked to create your game. Now all you want to do is give your game a title. I'm just going to call this tutorial, and in the description, Unreal Engine tutorial. This is just a description of what your game is going to be, and you don't have to concern yourself with this, but if you like, you can put in how many minutes it takes for a player to disconnect after the end of the session. I'm just going to leave that blank and hit next. Now all of this you can set up later, but if you scroll down you can head down and check Steam if you like for authentication, and what this will do is the server will check if you have an authentic key on Steam, and if you do, then it will allow you to connect to the servers. So you're better to check this first, and you can use obviously any other authentication process. If we scroll down now, we can click next and head over to our primary region. You don't have to set this up. You can set this up at a later date, but for now I'm just going to set up Europe as I am in the UK, and scroll down and just press create. Okay, and now this has created a game for you. Now you can go to configure and you can configure things like leaderboards, teams, virtual goods, achievements, multiplayer, messages, properties, downloadables, integrations and other things. And you can check your analytics, you can experiment, you can do a test harness, you can also edit the database directly, and you can head over to learn other things about the server. Now these keys here are very important because these are the keys that you use to actually connect to your server. Now for Gamesparks you're allowed 100,000 members in your server per month without paying, which is great. So to set this up, there are a few different ways to do it. You can download the SDK directly from the website. This time though, I think I'm going to just use the Epic Games Marketplace. So if you head over to your marketplace and just type in Gamesparks at the top and install the plugin, then what you want to do is head over to your library and install it to the engine, and then choose your engine version and install. Okay, so now that is installed into your engine, you can launch the Unreal Engine editor. Okay, so now that we have the plugin installed, if we head over to a new project, and I'm just going to use the third person project, and I'm going to name this Gamesparks tutorial, and I think I'll keep starter content off. Now for Gamesparks, what Gamesparks does is it allows you to access high level API. Now as you're very limited inside blueprints, you're better to do this inside C++. But for people who have a blueprint only project, you may want to add this in to a project you've already been working on. So for this I'm going to show you how to do this. If I just create this project in blueprint only mode. Okay, so now we can see we have new plugins available. If we go to manage plugins and enable the Gamesparks SDK and restart the editor. Okay, so moving on from there, if you go to our content, to change this into a mixed between Blueprint and C++, if you go to our content and just open up a new folder, and we'll call this C++. And inside the C++ folder, if you right click and say a new C++ class. Now for this to work, you will need Visual Studio. So the class, the parent class that we're going to use is just an empty C++ class. And we'll just name this class mixed empty class. Okay. Now before you hit create class here, if you click private, then hit create class, this will create a private C++ class for us. Okay, so now that we have created this C++ class, it will open up in Visual Studio. Now if you just allow all the parsing and initializing the project to happen, and when it's done, I will be back in just a second. Okay, I'm just going to quickly do this while this is running in the background. If you look at the side to your solution, you can see we have the engine folder with the Unreal Engine build files. You also have your games folder with your game project, which it means in my case is the Gamesparks tutorial. Now if you head down to source and then open up your project file, you should see a build file. Okay. Now if you click on this build file, you will get a file something like this that opens up. Okay. Now what you want to do is just after your input core, put comma, Gamesparks, comma, online subsystem, and obviously make sure you have your capital letters where they are supposed to be. And that is the plugin then enabled for the online subsystem. Okay. Now when you have this done, make sure this says ready, and you will then want to compile this file, or this build. So how you do that is just Control Shift and B, or head up to build and build solution. Okay, now when you have finished building the solution, you can see we have build succeeded. Now we can minimize this, head back over to our Unreal Engine, and you can see we don't have the actual file in here. So for this, what I would do is restart the editor, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so now that we are back in our editor, we want to create a new game instance. If you head over to our edit, project settings, maps and modes, and just create a new game instance. We'll put this into our blueprints folder, and I'll just call this GI for game instance. Okay, and just make sure that is set inside your editor. Here it is here. Now there are many ways you could do this. You could do it through C++, which is the reason why we turned this into a mixed project of C++ and blueprints. But for now, I'm just going to do it through blueprints, just to show you how you do it through here. Okay, so now that we have our game instance, if we now right click, go to blueprint class, and we want a game mode. and we will call this Gamesparks GM. And if you head over to your world settings, you can use your game mode override to change this to Gamesparks GM, and just save that out, and just make sure you have your default pawn here. That's fine. Okay, now inside your Gamesparks game mode, we want to drop down add component, and the component is going to be a Gamesparks component, and this will allow us to reference the Gamesparks component. So if we then head over to our event graph, let's delete the event tick, and from our event begin play, let's just drag our Gamesparks in. Okay, and if we just drag this out, you can see some parameters that they give already. So if it's available, debug logs, etc. So from here, we just want to drag off and say disconnect. Okay, and we also want connect. Okay, and in here we can keep the preview server on. Okay, you should only uncheck this when you're about to launch your game, as it will no longer be in preview mode. You can find out information about this. I think it's, yeah, I think it's around about here. Basically you're in the experimental mode. So right now what we need is, we need our API and our secret key. So I'm just going to copy this and head over to the connect and put in our API key, and we also need our secret key. So if we then open this up, show it, copy it, head back over to our connect and paste in our secret key, and this one will allow us to connect to the servers. So compile and save this. Now another thing we want to do is, if we click on the Gamesparks component, and let's just drag this out a little bit, now you can see we have it visible. We want to check on Gamesparks available delegate. So if we click on that, it now brings up a new event, and from here you can see we have a boolean if it's available, and if it's available we want a branch to tell us that it is available. And from true, let's just do a debug. So we'll right click and print string, and then do another one. So we'll duplicate that down, and we'll place this for false. So on the print string, we will just say Gamesparks is available, and on the false, let's just copy this, paste it down, and just say is unavailable, and compile and save. Okay, and now if we press play, you can see we have Gamesparks is available, and if we stop, it should become unavailable. Let's try that again for the new editor window. Gamesparks is available, and then it's unavailable when it disconnects. Okay. So that is basically how you set up your Gamesparks servers. If you drag off Gamesparks, you can see you have a list of different commands that you can give it, authenticate, API credentials, API domains, etc, etc. There are lots and lots of things you can do. Okay, so this brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope it helps some of you. If you have any questions, again, follow us on Discord, and I will see you in the next one.